Hi everyone, welcome back to Data C. I think we are recording a new video after a very long time, probably 2 to 4 weeks, I believe so. But this one is a short video. I want all of you guys to just take a walkthrough of what skills in anti-gravity are and how to use that skill. So anti-gravity released a new feature, a new, maybe not exactly a new because all the other coding agents already have this, but anti-gravity released something in January called as skills. Now, what are skills? If you do not know, skills is probably a way to teach your agent to follow a certain behavior. So for example, if I have to do a certain task today, I know that there's a sequence of steps that I need to follow. There might be some examples that I can recall from my past, and there's a certain behavior that I follow when solving a particular problem. That's what skills for agents are. So if you have a very specific problem that your agent is trying to solve, and there is a way that you do it specifically for yourself, or maybe your organization follow a certain behavior or certain way of doing a task, you can document this in a skill file, and agent will access every time they are trying to do that task. They'll see this skill file to get all the necessary steps to follow, right? For example, you can say I want to summarize a CSV file. Right now, the interpretation of data, how do we look at the data, might be different for you, might be different for others. So there's some sequence, there's some behavior that you follow in summarizing your data. And what you can do is you can create your skill for that project. So for example, you're working on a project where you want to summarize this information. You create a sequence of tasks, a sequence of descriptions. It could be steps, patterns, anything that agent might need in order to do that task, right? Now, coming to how does skill look like in anti-gravity? We have two types of skills here. First is workspace specific. So if you're working on a project, you can create a workspace specific skill. For example, let's say you are doing some design part. Now you want your agent to know some design concepts related to the project. You can do that. Plus, you can have a global skill. So for example, pushing code to GitHub, your repository, your organizational repository. Now there might be a single behavior following that pattern. So all the projects might have that same set of steps to follow, right? So maybe you can document that in your global repository. So there are two ways we can create skill. First is workspace and second is global skill. So global skill is something which agent will have access every time, but workspace specific skill is something which agent will only access when it is running a particular project. Now, how do we create this skill? So if I go through the documentation, there are certain folder structure, file structure that you should follow in order to best utilize this feature. So for example, if I say I am creating a skill, and what all can I have in my folder? So the very first thing is the skill.md file, that is a skill markdown file. This single file contains everything that your agent reads in the first try. And if it requires that, hey, I might need to check more things, maybe examples, maybe some more resources, some helping scripts that I might have, in that case you can create these 4 items for any particular skill that you are creating. For example, let's say I'm talking about summarizing a CSV file. So this is a specific task that I want to do, and I don't want to write the prompt every time. I want the agent to know that, hey, this is how I do it, and just do it. What you can do is you not only create a skill file, but you also create some helper scripts for it. You create some examples for it. You also create some resources or some any extra documentation that it should be aware of. So this is a typical structure of your skill directory. But obviously, the only thing that is mandatory is skill.md, and this is something that agent reads. These three things are optional, and if it requires for agent to read it, they read the file, right? Obviously, if there's a single file which has a description, the best thing would be it should be focused. So it should be do a single task very well instead of doing everything, right? So we can create multiple skills for multiple tasks. For example, they are showing an example of code review skill. I was going through this repository, I found this summarizer skill. So it is built for Claude, but the same concept can be used in any coding IDE that we do. So for example, if you look at, let me show you this file. Now, each skill.md file, irrespective of which ID do you use, it should have name and description. Generally, name is not exactly mandatory. Sometimes we might take the folder name as the name of the skill. But if we keep it here, it's the best practice. So what does the skill file exactly contain? It contains the name and the description. So this description helps the model know that, hey, I want to use this skill when I am doing these kind of tasks. And then further, it contains a detailed description of how to do that task. So for example, so there is a behavior requirement. So they have given certain instruction of what to do, what not to do. Then how the output should look like, what kind of plots should it create in the summary. Then there are correct approaches, behavior guidelines, what not to do is also there, forbidden behaviors. This is a very well written skill.md file, right? Then we also have the example prompts. Then if someone shares a file and say, can you summarize this, you know that you need to follow these steps in order to do so. So this is something a skill look like. Now let's go to this anti-gravity. So I was recently working on project and I thought maybe I haven't used this skill. It's been there for a while and maybe let's give it a try. So how do you create this skill? First, you create this dot agent folder. So this dot agent folder implies that we are looking at workspace specific skill, and every skill that I create is workspace specific for this project. You create a dot agent folder, then you create one more folder called a skills, and under this folder, inside this folder we have multiple skills. For example, I can create one skill for GitHub and I can write the name GitHub skill and description. Maybe let's say I want to follow a certain step before I push my code to the GitHub, right? There could be this. Then this exactly, this CSV summarizer skill, I downloaded it from that GitHub repository. Now this is a very well written skill, but maybe let's verify, can anti-gravity actually access that? So when I was creating this GitHub skill, I asked it, do I have any skill that you can use right now? So note that for now I do not have any global skill. So let's also look at the global skill. So how does global skill look like? You have to go to your C drive here, you have to go to your profile, then you have to go to Gemini. This is your local path, right? In your laptop, you might find this option here. You go to .gemini, you go to anti-gravity, and then here I created this folder manually. It was not there earlier. So you can create global skills in this folder, in the main anti-gravity folder on your laptop. So if I look at this folder, this is currently empty, so no skills as such. I can in fact delete that. But if I want to have some global skills, we can create a skills folder and then follow a same structure here as well. But let's go back to this. Also, very important thing. I realized that, anti-gravity does certain task. For example, if you see, if I ask a question, it creates a task MD file. It creates some documentation. For example, let me show you. It creates some artifacts, I would say. Right. Every time you ask a question, it might do any one of these things. It might create a task list. Then if it is a coding task, then it creates an implementation plan how to do that. It also, once this task is done, it creates a walkthrough of your whatever the problem is solved, or maybe some code repo walkthrough or anything. So these are the artifacts it generally creates, and you can find all these things in the brain of this anti-gravity, right? So for example, this history shows all the task MD or implementation MD file it created in its entire journey. So for example, if I talk about today, I asked this question here, right? If you see, this is the only question I asked as of now. Do I have any skill? And it has created some task MD file here. So I can see it here. So if I go to this folder, this is today's folder, I can see a single task markdown file created. And if I open it, you'll find that it has this structure. So this task MD file contains these tasks. So it has to search for a skill repository. It has to review those skills. It has to read GitHub skill documentation once it found, and then report finding to the user. So this is a sequence of tasks that agent has to perform, and it creates this, right? You can find all the implementation guide or walkthrough that you might have used in any of your projects, in any of the charts, in this folder itself, in the brain of anti-gravity. Then if I go through maybe what's say conversations. So conversation is also something which it stores. So I have this conversation that I initiated today, and it is a PB file. I'm not sure how to open this one. Let's see. Maybe not sure. Can I open this in Notepad? Unfortunately, no. So maybe we can have this. So this is basically this conversation history that of anti-gravity that we have. Now, can we see this in running? Let's say how many skills? Okay. Do you have any CSV summarizer skill? I'll just ask a question first. So I ask it, do you have any summarizer skill? Okay, it has some previous query running. Maybe I need to stop this one and I need to send it again. So now I've asked, do you have any CSV summarizer skill? Let's see. I'll do a follow up here. So researching CSV summarizer skill. So it has created a task.md file, right? You see, so now this this is basically performing. Yes, you have two skills that I can use right now: CSV data summarizer and GitHub skill. So it has read these two folders. Now it is aware of the two skills. And if you notice, the name of the skill is exactly not the folder name, but the name that we provided in the file, right? So if I go to this file here, you see CSV data summarizer, and it also gives me a description that when to use this skill. So the reason that description should be clear is because of this. Your description should be clear so that a model can understand when to use these skills, right? Pretty much that's it. I wanted to cover for this video. Maybe see you in the next video. Till then, bye bye.